The latest tech.
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
Interviews.
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that's happening.
Accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values. It's even a part of our mission statement.
This is DoubleTap TV.
Welcome to DoubleTap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here each and every single week. I am Marc Aflalo. Stephen Scott is by my side. Stephen, this week we are diving into an interesting conversation all about the new Surface devices that Microsoft unveiled last fall. Now, if you guys have been paying attention, if not, you're going to want to go back a couple shows because Dave Dane, the Director of Accessibility for Windows and Devices, joined us. He, of course, is an incredible gentleman. He has cerebral palsy. He's been working from home himself for the past couple of years, just like all of us. So we spoke with him earlier this season about working with a disability at home and working from home, what the future of work looks like. But this week, we're going to welcome Dave back on the show because we want to talk about his experience and his hands-on experience working with Surface devices. Now, Stephen, one of the takeaways I got, and we'll rewind a bit to, a couple scenes from that Surface event, was Dave was on stage and spent a good 10 minutes talking about the Surface Adaptive Kit. And this is a kit that retails for just under, I believe, $20 Canadian, that really helps people across the board with disabilities use and even unbox their Surface devices, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was an incredible moment because accessibility is, of course, a major plank of what Microsoft does, and we've said that many times on the show. And in fairness, companies like Amazon, Samsung, Apple, Google, they all, really are keen to promote and continue to invest time and money into accessibility. But getting on the main stage during an event like the Surface event is actually quite unusual. That's something that hasn't happened for a very long time. You often get a nod to accessibility or a nod to disability, and I have to say, sometimes these things feel a bit like inspiration porn. It's all very much like, oh, look at those wonderful disabled people doing great things, but it's all very surface level, pardon the pun. It doesn't really, yeah, thank you. But, it's all very simple. It doesn't really get into the meat of the discussion or any kind of sense of solution to, making a disabled person's life better. It doesn't get into that too much. Whereas that wasn't the case with this. This was a piece of kit that was launched called the Surface Adaptive Kit, which basically contains in it various tools to allow you to mark up your devices so you can easily identify, for example, keys on the keyboard. You have a range of bumps that are little tiny bumps, like a little dot, you've got a little circle, you've got a little line, and you've got a little X. And you could put those, for example, on different keys on the keyboard. There are port identifier keys, function row identifier keys, even little strips to put around your cables so you can identify the cable and then match it up with the port labeler. Even a fantastic thing, which Dave will talk about, which is a very simple piece of silicon, really, that helps you very easily open up the kickstand of a Surface Pro 8. You've got the Surface Pro 8. When you go to open it every day, because I know you're using it every day, I wonder, do you ever think about that? Do you ever think, wow, if I hadn't got the mobility in my hands to do this, if I had Parkinson's, for example, would I be able to open this thing? This enables that. This makes that possible. So it's a fantastic piece of kit.
It's not really limited to disabled people here because I could find a use for this now. That kickstand is hard to open on a regular day with stubby fingers like I have in front of me right now. So having something that I can, tuck underneath that hinge, that kickstand, and just pull on and just tug on is an extremely useful tool for me. So, this adaptive kit is something that I want to get as someone who's not disabled, and I want to use that to my advantage as well. And I think that's an important piece of the puzzle here because, just because they design things, and we talk about this all the time, talk about devices like the electric toothbrush that was first created for people with disabilities, and so many things that started from the disability vantage point, but really ended up in the mainstream. This is one of those things that I can definitely see along those lines.
And that's it, right? I mean, accessibility is for everybody. That's the point. It's not just for someone who is disabled. So I am a registered disabled person in the UK. I always find it a bit weird that I'm registered disabled. Like I'm on a list somewhere. It all seems a bit weird. But yeah, okay, so that's what it is. And that's fine. That's what I am. It's part of my identity. It's part of who I am and all of that. It's part of my life. But, there are a lot of people who aren't disabled but find themselves every day in a situation where they are situationally disabled. And that could be as simple as walking home from the store with your groceries in one hand and your calls coming in on the other, and you're having to navigate and fumble about with your phone to answer the call, or perhaps send a text message with one hand. In that moment, you're situationally disabled. And the technology has been built with that in mind. So when you're able to use your phone one-handed, that's because it's been designed that way. But it's obviously really handy to someone who doesn't have a left arm. It can make such a difference to those people. And it's the same with the technology for blindness or for low vision. You have large text options that just make that text a little bit bigger. Again, these are not tools that are unique or specific to disabled people. They make a huge difference to disabled people's lives. But I think for the success of this, and it's really been part of my advocacy work over the years, Mark, is really to say to people, the true success of accessibility, the true ability for accessibility tools to exist, it is all down to making it as available to as many people as possible. No product will sell for long if you only try and sell it to 10 people, right? You've got to sell it to the mainstream. And the Surface Adaptive Kit is a great example of that because it doesn't come with a big disability badge on it. It's just a kit that you can use, and lots of people, I'm hearing bloggers, read a lot of blogs, listened to a lot of podcasts of people who are, not disabled people, talking about how they would use this kit, and that's brilliant.
I've always wondered what it's like to be on stage for a keynote event, whether it be an Apple one or a Microsoft one. So I think I'm going to have to kick things off with Dave Dame after we take a quick break here and ask that question. It is Double Tap TV. We are talking all about the Surface event, but not only the Surface event and of course all the things that go into that, but we're going to bring Dave Dame, the Director of Accessibility for Devices and Windows, on again. He was on a couple weeks ago to talk all about what goes into designing these devices in the first place and what his experience is like. So stick around. Dave Dame is on deck. Stephen Scott, Marc Aflalo with you each and every single week. Get involved. Feedback at AMI.CA, of course, our email address. And if you're not following us on Twitter, do that at DoubleTap Canada with the hashtag AskDoubleTap.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit AMI.CA/DoubleTap. This is Double Tap TV.
We're back on Double Tap TV. Thank you guys for being with us each and every single week. So, a couple weeks back, we featured a great gentleman by the name of Dave Dame, the Director of Accessibility for Windows and Devices over at Microsoft. And guess what? Dave is back with us this week. Dave Dame, welcome back to Double Tap TV. Now, Dave, I got to ask you a question. I kind of alluded to it before we went to a break, which is, what is it like to be on stage at a big, high-profile keynote event like Microsoft put on when they unveiled the new Surface computers this past fall? What was that feeling like?
Well, it was interesting. It was during COVID in Canada. We weren't traveling that far. I got a call from my boss, Chris Hunter, and she's like, listen, can I talk to you? Can you come down for this event? We're going to shoot to do the Surface Adaptive Kit. Because at that time, I didn't try, do you do a pre-COVID test, post-COVID test? I was vaccinated and everything. But if it was anybody but her that would have asked me, I don't know if I would have went through all that struggle to fly to do it. But I knew the Surface Adaptive Kit was going to be such a compelling product because it was going to help, like you said, not only disabled people, but non-disabled people. And I care so much for my boss. I said, yeah, let's do it. So going there, I had every flight mishap you could hope for. But going there on 4 hours sleep, really going to the roots of it. And let's be honest, that was the first time I met my boss in person, even though we worked together for 4 months.
Wow.
But to be able to have that magic, to share that shared purpose on, we're going to enable so many people to do things with this, was magical. So going down there, Microsoft takes such good care on everything inclusiveness. One of the things I think people take for granted is the ability to unbox their really cool thing for the very first time. So I thought that was an important element that we shared, even though I was incredibly vulnerable. But it was great that it was going to be on the mainstream, right? It was the first time accessibility was on an equal stage of all the fantastic devices that were coming out. Mm-hmm. And, with that and sustainability, we really wanted to show we're not just a company that does cool tech. We want to create cool tech that enables everybody. And so by putting it on the main stage like that, and the reaction we got was just so compelling. When you see these really cool bloggers and YouTubers showing the Surface Adaptive Kit, it was the first time I seen accessibility being at the front and center stage, getting it as a marketing and getting it as prestigious as any of our other technologies, to show accessibility is good, it can be sexy, and it can be impactful to everybody. So that's what was incredible about that event. And even afterwards, some of the early feedback we got was, I even used the Surface Adaptive Kit to put stickers on my microwave, because now I can see the quick keep buttons and stuff. And people were using the port labeling for their entertainment unit. So when they had to put cords behind the TV, it was easy for them to line up the ports. But that was a big definition of how when we design for one, it can be shared with all. Really, really blossomed into its own story.
You know, Dave, it was so good to see you up on stage and, you know, showcasing the Surface Adaptive Kit, a real example of how Microsoft are really, you know, taking to heart that message of nothing about us without us. You know, disabled people up front showing what's possible.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that, right? Because when we shot that commercial, one of the things I feel the most vulnerable about is my hands. They're really impacted by cerebral palsy. So when I unboxed the Surface Adaptive Kit, it was really, really challenging for me to be vulnerable enough to do that. But the number of emails I got, the number of messages I got, seeing you unbox it made me feel more comfortable about myself. That was when I really resonated that me having a disability brings that authenticity. But even before I got there, Microsoft is so focused on inclusive design that we design with people with disabilities and not for. So in every bit of the product making process, we really reach out to the community to really understand where the gaps are, where their challenges are, because we want to see firsthand. We want to understand the struggles and challenge and look for the best ways to really resolve those mismatches. So I'm glad that I've been able to add on to an already solid foundation before I got here.
It's interesting, just digging into the Surface Adaptive Kit for just a second here, Dave. You know, I used a product for years called Lock Dots, which I don't know if they're available in Canada, but essentially they're just tiny little dots that you stick on. And the reason I used those versus the regular bump-ons was because I was generally putting these on laptops. And it meant that, you know, if I was closing the lid, I'd be damaging the screen or potentially the keyboard by having these big dots or big bumps on my keys. So having the lock dots made it easier. Of course, that's something you've built in now with this Surface Adaptive Kit. And it proves how versatile these things can be, because you can use them not just on a computer keyboard, right?
Right, and it's not just for blind people too. There's lanyards on it that really make the screen easy to open and things, right? Because I think people, when they think about accessibility, they might think about it beginning from the moment somebody is actually creating or building. But really, the moment of accessibility needs to start with when I roll up to the device or when you come up to the device. Can I find the button to turn the power on? For me, can I lift the screen to open it? The journey starts way before we get to interact with the technology, and the journey continues after when we want to put that technology away. So looking at the journey from a user and not just the technology.
Dave, when you're designing something like this, how do you make sure you don't leave people out in the process?
Well, the same challenge in product making, right? Like, ideally, we'd love to build a product, even if it's nothing to do with accessibility, that can be wanted by all or used by all. But really, with time and space being a finite resource, I think we do our best shot to think about what do we do with this first iteration of the kit? Which problems are we needing to solve? And then once we release it, let's learn how it's being used. Let's learn to see which gaps still exist or which new gaps there is. So I think you have to almost forego that concern about omitting someone and realizing it's an iterative process. And you know what? If we omitted somebody this time unintentionally, we're going to really pick up on that learning and implement it in future iterations for other products or future iterations of existing products.
Dave, stick around for a couple of seconds. We're going to take a quick break and come back to you. We are in conversation with Dave Dame, Director of Accessibility for Windows and Devices over at Microsoft. Of course, I am Marc Aflalo with Stephen Scott. When we come back, let's dive into the hardware that was announced this fall, because I've been loving my Surface Pro 8.
For more great DoubleTap TV content, visit AMI.CA/DoubleTap. This is DoubleTap TV.
We're talking all things Surface on this week's edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys for being with us. Again, if you want to get involved each and every single week, let us know. Feedback at AMI.CA, of course, is our email address. On Twitter, make sure you're following us at Double Tap Canada, and use the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap, so we can get to your questions on a future show. I am Marc Aflalo, as always, Stephen Scott by my side, and our guest this week is Dave Dame, the Director of Accessibility for Windows and Devices at Microsoft.
Yeah, and Dave, I want to jump into the hardware because I know Mark has been going on about how wonderful and sleek and gorgeous the Surface Pro 8 is. And it is. It's, you know, from what I understand, I don't have one, so I can't tell. I just go from what Mark tells me here, but it sounds like a fantastic device. And it wasn't the only piece of sexy hardware that was announced at the Surface event, right?
Oh yeah, I love the Pro 8. It's light enough, it's easy enough, it's a tablet, it's a keyboard, but it's really got the horsepower it needs to run my assistive technology that isn't built into the Windows suite. So really, that product was great. And what I found interesting, Stephen, that I never thought I would use is the pen. Right? Because I'm like, I don't use a regular pen day to day, except for signing my name for things like mortgages and employment agreements. But now that we have the digital pen and I'm using it, I'm realizing I'm using the pen a lot more than I thought I would. And I thought to myself, why? Is it because I'm a tech nerd and I like technology? But I think the real reason why I feel comfortable using a pen now, when you use a pen digitally, it's easy to correct your mistakes. It's easy to be human and change your mind. Where permanent pen, if I make a mistake, then I got to scribble it or try to fumble with liquid paper, which nobody wants. And then to do that. So the hardware of the pen, the Surface Pro 8, and even the Surface Studio laptop, right, with the different screen postures, has just been fantastic.
You know, Dave, there was a category that I felt was omitted at this past event, and it's a category that I know you guys are still vested into, and that is desktops, because we saw lots of portables, lots of 2-in-1s, lots of laptops, but desktops weren't really on stage, but you're still making the Surface Studio, right?
Yep, the Studio is still there. But you're right, it was funny, I was on a call a few weeks ago, and somebody mentioned desktop. I'm like, wow, what are those? And I think it's because the industry is going more mobile, but you know what the reality is, I think? And I don't know what your setup at home is. Even though I have laptops, I plug into a hub, I have multiple screen displays. So really, my laptop has become the new desktop.
Dave, talk to us about some of the things that you are particularly working on, you yourself, that we might see today in some of the Microsoft's hardware and products and services that we use.
Well, yeah, we still have this Surface Studio, right? It's a gorgeous screen, it pivots, it signs for your desktop needs. But we're really trying to get, a whole device ecosystem that we can meet the needs of a variety of different users. And, it's hard to be everything to all people, but we can have a device that can work for anyone. So, that's the model I believe we're trying to satisfy. I think it's just the ongoing humanistic side of accessibility and making it real to those people that may not be exposed to it, and continually learning from the community of where we can better serve them.
Dave Damon, it's absolutely brilliant having you back on here on Double Tap TV. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope we can get you back on again soon to talk more about Surface and really geek out on some of this stuff here on Double Tap TV.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
You know, Stephen, there's a handful of guests that I could think of that I would love to have on, like, every couple weeks, and Dave Dame is definitely one of those people that I could see becoming a regular on this show. Thank you so much, Dave, for being with us, not only this week, but the past couple of weeks. And if you missed that episode, guys, on the future of work, just head on over to youtube.com/accessiblemedia, and you can just search for Double Tap TV and find us there. On behalf of Stephen Scott, I am Marc Aflalo. Thank you guys so much for being with us each and every single week. We will catch you again on our next edition of Double Tap TV.
Hosted by Marc Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Editing Jordan Steeves and Marc Aflalo. Voiceover Anna Vicino. Integrated Described Video Specialist Ron Rickford. Coordinating Producer Jennifer Johnson. Director Production CARA Nye. Director Programming Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2022 Accessible Media Inc.